The sound of Patricia Kincaid's heels snapping against the concrete announced her presence before she even came into view. She was a force of control in her neighborhood, never subtle, always sharp. That morning in Columbus, Ohio. The street was alive with something unusual. A moving truck parked in front of the old brick colonial at the corner of Willow Lane. Patricia didn't like unusual. She liked predictability. What she saw through her sunglasses convinced her that her neighborhood was about to change in a way she didn't approve of. The truck door slid open with a clang, and a woman stepped down, balancing a medium-sized box against her hip. She was tall, her posture steady, her expression focused on the task in front of her. Selena Ward. Patricia didn't know her name yet, but in her mind, it didn't matter. She had already labeled her renter. Patricia muttered under her breath, lips tight. She crossed her arms as if folding them could shield the street from what she believed was an intrusion. Selena set the box on the porch, brushed the hair from her face, and turned back toward the truck. She didn't even notice Patricia at first, standing like a sentry at the edge of her driveway. But Patricia had no patience for being ignored. "Excuse me," Tricia's voice carried sharply across the street. Selena looked over, caught off guard. "Morning," she said politely, with a small smile. Patricia didn't return the smile. "Are you aware of the HOA guidelines here?" Selena blinked, confused for a moment. Guidelines. Yes. Rules about occupancy, property standards, and other matters, Patricia said. Her words cutting in a way that suggested she was used to lecturing. Selena tilted her head slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." "I just moved in." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "Moved in, as in you're renting this property." Selena paused, reading the tone, recognizing the assumption hanging in the air. She chose her words carefully. "I live here now, yes." That answer didn't satisfy Patricia. She stepped closer, heels clicking louder now, as if they carried authority of their own. "Renters aren't permitted on Willow Lane. It's in the bylaws. This is a community of homeowners." Selena's patience thinned just slightly. "I don't see how that's your concern." "I'm unpacking, if you'll excuse me." But Patricia wasn't done. "It is my concern. I'm the president of the HOA. It's my responsibility to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood. People here take pride in ownership." Selena took a quiet breath and forced a calm smile. "That's good to hear." She lifted another box, refusing to give Patricia the confrontation she seemed to be craving. From across the street, blinds shifted. Neighbors were watching. Patricia thrived on that, the audience. The performance. "You can't just move in without proper documentation," Patricia pressed. "I'll need to see a copy of the lease." At the very least, Selena set the box down slowly, her patience cracking. "Lease." She repeated, her tone steady but sharper now. "Yes, don't act like you don't know," Patricia said, her voice dripping with accusation. "The owners here don't just sell to anyone, and they certainly don't allow their properties to be used for temporary rentals." Selena studied her for a long moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She had dealt with people like this before. The assumptions, the certainty, the arrogance wrapped as authority. Still, she chose not to fight her right then. "Not yet. I think you'll find," Selena said carefully, "that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Patricia raised her eyebrows, scoffing under her breath as she turned away. "We'll see about that," she muttered, loud enough for Selena to hear it as the moving truck rumbled and boxes piled onto the porch. The neighborhood stood at attention. Some pretending not to watch, others whispering behind curtains. And while Selena focused on moving her belongings inside, Patricia was already plotting her next move. But what Patricia didn't realize was that her first step in this battle had only set the stage for a much bigger humiliation. By the next morning, the air on Willow Lane felt heavier, though nothing had changed except for one thing: a piece of paper taped to Selena Ward's freshly painted front door. Patricia Kincaid had made her move. The bold print at the top read notice of HOA violation, and beneath it, in Patricia's precise handwriting, were a series of demands. Remove moving boxes from the porch, present proof of residency, and provide documentation of ownership or tenancy within 72 hours. Selena found it when she stepped outside with a mug of coffee in her hand. She paused, tilted her head, and read it twice, trying to decide if she should laugh or feel insulted. She had closed on the property just days ago, wired the funds herself, and yet here she was, being treated like a trespasser on her own front step. She peeled the paper off slowly and folded it in half. "So this is how we are doing things," she murmured to herself. The sound of a throat clearing made her glance up. Patricia stood at the edge of her driveway again, arms crossed, as if she had been waiting for this very moment. "Good morning," Patricia said, though the words carried no warmth. "Morning," Selena replied, sipping her coffee, steady as ever. "I see you've received the notice," Patricia continued, nodding toward the folded paper in Selena's hand. "Yes," Selena said simply. "And?" Patricia pressed, as if expecting obedience. Selena shrugged. "And I don't see how this applies to me." Patricia's eyes flashed. "It applies to everyone who lives here. If you're renting, that's a violation. If you're improperly storing items on the porch, that's a violation. The HOA has rules for a reason." Selena lowered her mug, her patience wearing thin. "Let's clear something up. I'm not renting. And those boxes, I'm moving in. It's called life." From across the street, a man watering his lawn slowed his movements, listening closely. Curtains twitched again. People were watching, soaking in every word. Patricia took a step forward, her voice rising just enough for the neighborhood to hear. "Then provide documentation. If you're truly the owner, that shouldn't be difficult. Otherwise, you'll be fined." Selena set her coffee on the porch rail and straightened her posture. "Fine, for living in my own house." Patricia didn't blink. "Correct." There was a pause, heavy and tense. Selena looked her straight in the eye, then broke into a small laugh. "You know, I closed on this house less than a week ago. Cash, signed deed, title transfer, the works. And here you are, trying to slap fines on me like I snuck in under the cover of night." That laugh unsettled Patricia more than shouting would have. It was calm, confident, and it carried weight. "Until I see proof." "This property is under review," Patricia said firmly, her jaw set. "You may think you can talk circles around me, but I know my job." Selena's response was measured, almost deliberate. "And I know mine, which right now is getting my belongings into my home. Not defending myself from someone who doesn't even know my name." That last part stung Patricia. She hated being called out, especially in front of others. The man across the street shifted uncomfortably and turned off his hose, retreating inside. But his silence said enough. People were listening. People were noticing. Selena picked up her coffee again and gave Patricia a steady look. "You want proof. Fine, I'll show you proof. But when I do, I expect an apology." Patricia scoffed. "Don't hold your breath." Selena's tone dropped to something firmer. "Oh, I won't. Because unlike you, I don't go around making assumptions about strangers." Patricia froze for a moment, her grip tightening on the clipboard she carried. She wanted to fire back, but for once, words failed her. So she turned on her heel, retreating toward her driveway with her pride wounded but her determination intact as she walked away. Selena shook her head and muttered under her breath. Some people really don't know when to quit. She tucked the notice inside and closed the door, leaving Patricia fuming on the sidewalk. Later that afternoon, as movers carried in the last of Selena's furniture, Patricia returned with another copy of the violation notice, this time slipping it under the door. The persistence was almost laughable, but Selena decided to wait. She knew the deed in her hands was stronger than any piece of paper Patricia could tape to her door. But what Patricia didn't know was that her threats were about to backfire spectacularly. And the neighborhood she thought she controlled was already questioning where her authority really ended by the third day. The tension on Willow Lane could have been cut with a knife. What had started as a single notice had turned into a campaign. Patricia Kincaid wasn't content to simply tape papers to a door. She wanted a show of force that morning. Selena Ward stepped outside to find not one, but 3 brightly printed notices fluttering in the wind on her porch railing. One was about trash cans being visible from the street. Another accused her of failing to register with the HOA office. And the last, Patricia's boldest move, warned of immediate legal action if proof of residency wasn't produced within 48 hours. Selena stared at the stack, shaking her head slowly. It was absurd, almost comical. But the comedy didn't mask the sting of being singled out. She knew it wasn't about trash cans or paperwork. It was about Patricia's need to dominate. To remind everyone that she was the gatekeeper of this neighborhood. As Selena gathered the notices, she heard Patricia's voice cut through the morning air. "You can keep pulling them down," Patricia called from across the street. "But they'll keep coming back until you comply." Selena exhaled deeply, walked to the edge of her lawn, and held up the stack. "You want to talk about this? Then let's actually talk." Patricia didn't hesitate. She crossed over, clipboard tucked under her arm, her stride sharp and commanding. Neighbors appeared almost instantly, as though the drama had become their morning entertainment. Curtains opened, dogs were shushed, and someone even lingered by their mailbox a little too long. "You're refusing to cooperate," Patricia announced. Stopping a few feet away, "I'm refusing to be harassed," Selena countered. "This isn't harassment. This is enforcement." Selena let out a humorless laugh. "Enforcement for boxes on a porch and trash cans not tucked at a perfect angle. Come on. This isn't about rules. This is about you not wanting me here." The words hung heavy, daring Patricia to deny them. But Patricia, never one to back down, leaned forward. "If you really owned this house, you would have nothing to hide. But everything about you screams tenant. And tenants lower property values." A ripple of discomfort spread among the small crowd of neighbors. Some shifted uneasily, while others pretended to be preoccupied. But everyone heard the undertone in Patricia's words. Selena folded the notices neatly, her movements controlled. "You're overstepping. I don't owe you explanations. Not here, not on my lawn. If you have questions about ownership, check the county records." Patricia's lips tightened. "I don't need county records. I need proof from you. Then you're going to be waiting a long time." Selena replied firmly, "Because I don't answer to you." Patricia's voice rose, her tone sharp enough to cut. "This is my neighborhood. I've kept it in order for over a decade. People respect me because I make sure things are done right. If you think you can waltz in here and ignore the system, you're mistaken." Selena locked eyes with her. "Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn." The crowd murmured faintly at that line. Patricia flushed, realizing that Selena's words had struck deeper than she intended. She turned to the onlookers, gesturing with her clipboard. "You all know what happens when rules are ignored. One person pushes the boundaries, and suddenly the whole community suffers. Is that what we want?" A few heads nodded out of habit, but most people stayed silent. Patricia's grip on her audience wasn't as strong as it once had been. Selena stepped closer, her voice calm but commanding. "I bought this house because I wanted peace. A place where I could build a future without interference. But instead, I've had to waste my time explaining myself to someone who doesn't even have the authority she claims." Patricia flinched, her jaw clenching. You'll regret talking to me like that. Selena's response was measured, but each word carried weight. No, Patricia. The only regret here is that you've mistaken intimidation for leadership. The silence that followed was louder than any shouting match. Neighbors looked at one another, some nodding subtly in Selena's direction. Patricia's dominance was cracking, and she knew it. She turned abruptly, storming back across the street with her clipboard hugged tightly to her chest. But her words trailed behind her, sharp and desperate. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Selena watched her go, the stack of notices still in her hand. She knew Patricia wouldn't stop. People like her never did. But what Patricia didn't realize was that every confrontation was weakening her grip, not strengthening it. But Patricia was about to make her boldest move, yet one that would drag the entire neighborhood into the conflict and force Selena to reveal the truth sooner than she had planned. 2 days later, Patricia Kincaid decided to escalate things beyond notices and public arguments. She called for a compliance check, an unscheduled walkthrough she claimed was authorized by the HOA bylaws. The problem was she had no such authority. Still, that didn't stop her from marching up Selena Ward's driveway one humid afternoon with her clipboard in one hand and a camera phone in the other. Selena was kneeling by a row of flower pots, adjusting soil levels when she heard the crunch of heels on gravel. She looked up, immediately recognizing the determined stride. "You're trespassing," Selena said calmly, brushing dirt from her gloves. "I'm documenting," Patricia replied without hesitation. "Failure to comply leaves me no choice but to escalate." She raised her phone and began snapping pictures of the porch, the lawn, even the cracks in the sidewalk. Selena stood, straightening her back. "Document all you want, but if you don't leave, I'll call the police." Patricia lowered her phone just enough to smirk. "Go ahead. I'll explain to them you're refusing to show proof of ownership. Then we'll see who they side with." The exchange had drawn a small audience again. Children paused on bicycles, neighbors slowed their evening walks, and even the mail carrier lingered a moment longer than usual. Everyone sensed the tension boiling over. Selena inhaled deeply, reached into her pocket, and pulled out a folded document she had been carrying for days, just in case. She held it up with deliberate patience. "You want proof," she said, her voice steady but firm. "Here it is." Patricia's smirk faltered. Selena unfolded the paper, revealing an official deed, stamped and signed by the Franklin County Recorder's Office. The bold lettering across the top confirmed it. "Selena Marie Ward, owner of record." Gasps echoed from the small crowd. Even the mail carrier froze mid-step. Patricia blinked, her mouth opening slightly before she quickly shut it again. "This house belongs to me," Selena continued, holding the document higher so everyone nearby could see. "I purchased it outright. No lease, no landlord, no temporary anything. I'm the homeowner." Patricia's face flushed crimson, but she tried to recover. "Anyone could print something like that," she scoffed weakly. Selena raised an eyebrow. "You think the county recorder's seal is something you can print at home? Why don't you check the public records? They're open to anyone. You'll find my name there." The mail carrier, emboldened by curiosity, nodded. "She's right. You can check that online in minutes." Patricia shot him a glare, then turned back to Selena. "Even if you are the owner, that doesn't excuse non-compliance with the HOA's rules. Ownership doesn't give you the right to disregard standards." Selena folded the deed neatly, tucking it back into her pocket. "And it doesn't give you the right to harass neighbors you don't approve of. You've gone out of your way to target me from day one. Why? Because you assumed I didn't belong here." The words struck hard. Neighbors glanced at one another, whispers forming at the edges of the crowd. Patricia cleared her throat, forcing composure. "This isn't about who belongs. This is about keeping order. "No," Selena replied, her voice sharper now. "This is about you being wrong and too proud to admit it." For once, Patricia didn't have a comeback. Her clipboard wavered in her hands, and her eyes darted toward the growing crowd. She hated being cornered, hated being challenged in front of the very people she thought she ruled. Selena softened her tone, but kept her stance firm. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. I moved here because I wanted peace. The same thing everyone else wants. But peace doesn't exist when one person thinks they're the law. That's not community. That's control." The crowd murmured in agreement. Patricia's authority was slipping, and she knew it. "I'll review the situation," Patricia muttered, her voice trembling with anger she couldn't disguise. She turned quickly, retreating toward her home. The once commanding click of her heels, now sounding uneven. Rushed Selena watched her go, exhaling slowly. The neighbors' eyes lingered on her a moment longer, then began to scatter. Some offered small smiles, others nods of silent support. Selena gave a brief wave before heading back to her flower pots, her heart pounding, but her resolve intact. But while Patricia had been embarrassed, she wasn't finished. In her mind, the deed only complicated things. And she was about to dig even deeper, uncovering a boundary dispute that would throw gasoline on the fire. Asterisk for the next week. Willow Lane felt like a stage split down the middle. On one side stood Patricia Kincaid, redoubling her efforts to hold on to her authority. On the other was Selena Ward, quietly going about her life, refusing to be intimidated. The neighborhood was caught in between, forced to choose sides. Asterisk, it started with whispers. At the corner house, a couple named Jeff and Marlene Trask muttered about how Patricia had finally gone too far this time. 2 doors down, an older resident, Howard Briggs, defended her, telling anyone who'd listen that Patricia's the only reason this street hasn't gone downhill. Every trip to the mailbox, every walk with the dog, became a chance for neighbors to stake out an opinion. Selena noticed the divide almost immediately. People she had never met before approached her with cautious kindness. A young mother, Denise Howell, stopped her one morning as she watered the flower pots on her porch. "I just want you to know," Denise said softly, glancing around as if worried someone might hear. "Not everyone here thinks the way Patricia does. Some of us are glad you bought the place. It looks better than it has in years." Selena smiled. "I appreciate that. I didn't move here to fight with anyone." Denise nodded quickly. "I believe you. But Patricia, she doesn't let go easy." Selena's expression hardened slightly. "I'm starting to see that." Meanwhile, Patricia was busy reinforcing her camp. She held impromptu sidewalk meetings outside her house. Clipboards and papers spread across a folding table like evidence in a trial. She ranted about community standards and property values, her voice carrying down the street so no one could miss it. Asterisk. "She's reckless," Patricia barked to Howard Briggs one evening. "No respect for process, no respect for the HOA. If she stays unchecked, who knows what comes next?" Loud parties. Trash on the curb. God knows what else. Howard nodded along dutifully, though his wife, sitting nearby, kept her lips pressed together and avoided eye contact. The cracks in Patricia's support system were beginning to show. It wasn't just talk. Some neighbors began to act differently around Patricia. The older kids who once waved to her on their way home from school now crossed the street instead. Longtime residents who used to greet her cheerfully now offered only curt nods. Patricia told herself it was temporary, but deep down she felt the shift. Selena, too, sensed the tension building. She had always prided herself on keeping her composure, but living under constant scrutiny was exhausting. One afternoon, as she carried groceries inside, she caught Howard's wife, Eleanor, lingering at the curb. "Can I help you?" Selena asked, balancing a paper bag against her hip. Eleanor hesitated, then leaned closer. Just be patient. People are watching. They'll see the truth for themselves. Selina gave a faint smile. Thank you. That means more than you know. Inside her house, Selina replayed those words. People are watching. She knew it was true. Every action she took, every response she gave Patricia, was being measured by a neighborhood still deciding who to believe. Patricia, however, thrived on being underestimated. One evening, she stormed into her own kitchen and slammed her clipboard onto the counter. Her husband, Richard, looked up from his newspaper. What now? He sighed. She thinks she's won, Patricia snapped, waving that deed around like it's the final word. But it's not. I've been looking at the property lines, and I'm telling you, something doesn't add up. Richard frowned. Property lines. Yes, the survey reports. I'm going to request a review. If there's even an inch of overlap onto my yard, I'll take her to court. Richard shook his head. Patricia, maybe let this go. Let this go. She interrupted, her voice sharp. This is my reputation. My neighborhood. If I back down now, everyone will think I was wrong. Richard muttered under his breath. But she ignored him, her mind already racing ahead, plotting her next move. Back across the street, Selina sat on her porch at sunset, watching children ride bikes up and down the pavement. She thought of the people who had whispered their support, of the neighbors who had remained silent. The divide was real, but she wasn't going to let Patricia's obsession define her new home. She reached for her phone, dialing a number she had saved the day she closed on the house, her real estate attorney in downtown Columbus. Hi, Selina Ward, she said when the call connected. I think I might need your advice on a situation that's getting out of hand. But Patricia's suspicion about the property lines wasn't just noise. It was about to ignite the conflict in a way neither she nor the neighborhood could have anticipated. The following week, Patricia Kincaid marched into the Franklin County Clerk's office with the confidence of someone who believed the universe bent to her will. She requested copies of the most recent property surveys for Willow Lane, her manicured nails tapping impatiently on the counter, when the clerk handed her a packet of maps and stamped documents. Patricia flipped through them quickly, eyes narrowing. And then she saw it. A red boundary line had shifted. According to the updated survey, her beloved backyard, the one where she hosted HOA barbecues, the one with the garden she bragged about, endlessly slipped across the property line by less than 6 feet. Part of her yard now belonged to Selina Ward. Patricia's heart pounded, but not with panic. No, this discovery thrilled her. She saw it as leverage, a weapon she could wield. She snapped the folder shut, muttering, "Well, isn't that interesting?" Back on Willow Lane that evening, Patricia wasted no time. She stormed across the street, papers in hand, her face lit with the kind of false confidence that had fooled neighbors for years. Selina was in the backyard, pulling weeds from a flower bed, when Patricia appeared like a storm cloud at the fence line. Care to explain this? Patricia demanded, waving the packet of surveys. Selina rose slowly, dusting soil from her hands. Explain what? This? Patricia slapped the papers against the wooden fence. According to these records, part of this yard isn't yours. It's mine. That means your fence is illegal, and your so-called deed isn't as airtight as you thought. Selina reached for the documents, calmly flipping through them. Her eyes moved over the highlighted sections before she nodded. Double quotes, yes. I know about the survey adjustment. My realtor mentioned it during closing. Patricia's mouth fell open. You knew? Of course I knew, Selina replied evenly. That's why the deed includes the corrected boundary lines.